So you presume, well, you make these companies more profitable. They could probably pass that saving on to the consumers, but do they actually do that?
They do sometimes. So we can't force that.
Yeah.
But yeah, in Kenya, that's what's happened, is there's a lower cost of power in the community because they've now been able to, that company who runs it, they're more empathetic to their own customers in the grid. And so
because they've got no other option, so they could keep it the same, presumably.
They could. Like in Malawi, what happened is they were finally then able to buy power meters because they weren't financially sustainable. They couldn't even buy power meters to turn on more families who wanted power. And so we came in there, they're now able to buy it for 200 more families. 200 more families are connected actually in the last 3.5 months. And then the other thing that had happened is one of their turbines had gone down. They have 3 powerhouses, one 50, 50, and I think 100 kilowatts each. So one of the 50 kilowatt powerhouses had gone down a year ago. So they were now able to fix it. And so now they had more power for the whole community to use. There's a backlog of 800 families who want energy. 200 of them are already on, and the other 600 will be on soon.
That's cool.
Yeah. So there's different community benefits that come from this. And this is my sticking point with anybody who talks about this as like, oh yeah, well, Bitcoin uses too much energy. Like, well, it uses a lot of energy. Too much is its own tell on your moral stance on what energy should be used for, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that it pushes electricity out to more homes at a lower price, or possibly lower price, into these rural communities, that's a net positive. And we'll always have a disagreement. If you think that some kid in some village being able to study later at night, or who won't have respiratory illnesses because he didn't grow up on lamp smoke, is more important, or is less important than your moral stance on what Bitcoin should be, what energy should be used for.
They're just objectively wrong.
Well, I would say that because it's about, we can't forget that there's humans involved here, and human progress is important. And when you have a moral stance sitting in your ivory tower in the West about how energy should be used, you are losing context for why energy is there at all.
It goes back to that Gladstein point of check your financial privilege, or check your privilege. And this is why that guy like Alex DeFries pisses me off, or this conversation we had in Houston where I was like, the central character to my film was Elizabeth Warren, because what I kept thinking about is I don't think you understand the second order consequences of what you're doing when you are attacking Bitcoin. You're attacking these kind of projects as well. You're attacking us as Bitcoiners. I'm not just going to pretend I'm just care about your project, but I'm saying you're attacking all of us. But let's actually look at these amazing projects that are happening that you're causing problems for.
Well, the thing that, what we're talking about is that people are taking either political or moral stances on things for their own personal gain, their own personal benefits, and they don't have the full context, or they don't care about the full context of what that technology does. And so there's a level of intellectual dishonesty at play, and it's easy to see.
And I think there's also it's easy to say oh, miners aren't helping the grid, or whatever kind of stateside arguments we have. You've seen the curtailment stuff in Texas, but if you want to put that in practice in a place that's never had that kind of stuff, you could see the real impact where it has on people.
How do they pay their bills? Do they receive a bill through the post? Or is it metered and they pay in advance?
It's metered and prepaid. So somebody will go and they'll get they'll pay 100 shillings or 300 kwacha for this much energy, and as soon as they've used that much, their meter turns off the power. Okay.
And in terms of usage, when you've seen one of these mini grids go into one of these villages, do you literally see like a change to the village? Has it become like a whole exciting thing? Is it total game changer? Suddenly lights are on in the evening, the village doesn't close down? Help me understand.
When the sun goes down in Africa, it can get very dark very quickly, and the world becomes very small. So when you have energy and people have electricity at their homes, lights come on. People go to the shop because that shop has power, and they all hang out there. They go to their local pub, and they have a different It's just a completely different feel. You have more security. It's a big deal, actually. There's much more security when you have electricity. Education gets better, healthcare improves. Did you know that there's 50,000 clinics in hospitals across Africa where people can't get there within 50 minutes that don't have electricity? That's the kind of thing people don't know about, right? And it's big. I mean, and that affects, I think, something like 280 million Africans. Just that access to clinics with electricity, right? That's a crazy number, right? And so having energy in your village has an incredible effect. And that's not even counting the economic effect. What does it do for businesses? Which is another level, right? Which I get excited about. Like I grew up in Africa, so I'm not a big fan of the NGO world and the kind of grant money subsidization that happens. I'm a fan of businesses and what happens when businesses move in and people are getting wealthier because they're doing something that has long-term economic value. And if we really want to change the economic trajectory of Africa, we have to talk about businesses and wealth generation.
How many grids have you got operational now?
So we have the one in Kenya. We have the one in Malawi. We'll have another one in Zambia in 2 months' time. I'm really excited about.
Great.
And then we have the partnership we did in Nigeria with Siambola, who's one of the he was mining on his own and he had some extra power, so we sent him some miners as well that we do a rev share with him on, and we have a couple other sites that are on the horizon for this next about 9 months.
And with these grid operators, do you go through a moment with them where there's like an initial skepticism when they receive that first kind of Bitcoin check as such? They're like, shit, we just got this.
Yeah, this is real money.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the realization that it's real money and it's a real business customer.
And they become proper Bitcoiners at that moment.
Well, or they become believers in our Bitcoin data center at the very least. That's the bare minimum. But yeah,
that's the foot in the door for the orange pill.
Yeah,
that's their Silk Road.
Leadership on the company. Leadership on the company is like, oh, okay, and you can see the kind of the shift.
I know you've raised money. What's holding you guys back rolling out hundreds of these sites?
Well, we had a very wise advisor who told us, build slowly, make sure you really know how it's going. That's also Africa. You don't want to go big right away. You want to make sure you really understand the intricacies of what you're doing. So we've been going slowly on purpose. And we'll probably, I'd like to get to 10 megawatts by the end of the year, maybe earlier. But we're not going to grow massively right away. Make sure we understand.
Because if you do it wrong, and all it takes is for you to burn one grid operator, he'll tell all his buddies, and you're out of business.
So for context, 10 megawatts. I've seen what you've got at your place.
That's two.
That's two. So it's about 5 times that. That's your target. Okay.
Yep.
But you've got that in one location. Industrial miners, I've been to Riot and I've seen the Iris facilities. I've seen a lot of these facilities now. These are big facilities that have a lot of economies of scale have been in one location. You're like a decentralized network of these. How many ASICs do you tend to have on a site? I know it'll range, but
yeah, I mean, we'll have between 20 and 200 on a site. So it's not big. There's something about horizontal scale versus vertical scale. You're talking about vertical scale when you have these big sites, warehouses full of miners, and it gives you a ton of efficiency, but your resiliency decreases.
That's right.
So there's something valuable in having a horizontal scale where you might have 15 different sites. Now, you will not have the efficiencies. You have to manage those 15 sites. Takes more people or more time.
But watch this summer. As the Texas curtailment season comes on, watch the network hash rate. It'll go up and down and up and down because there's so much concentration in Texas.
How much of the hash rate's in Texas now?
I think the Texas Blockchain Council puts it at 15%, 20% maybe.
Global hash rate?
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
But it's not as resilient because it's all in one place and it's a free market and there are opportunities elsewhere to capture upside.
What would that mean for block production? Would it have any
I think
impact?
you'll see the difficulty chop sideways this summer.
Chop, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But in Africa, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah, so if we talk about, so let's just shift to that for a moment. there has been a bit of criticism, pushback within Texas, but it seems to be the pushback is coming from people who aren't in Texas sometimes. But I know some within. What's the is the story being told of Texas and Bitcoin by Bitcoiners being told honestly?
I think the curtailment story is an interesting one, but there's levels of curtailment. There are some miners who do it very well, some miners who do it very poorly. If you do curtailment poorly, it's a net negative.
Why is that?
If you,
In fact, actually, how would you do it poorly, first of all?
if you don't have the right software to either read when the grid needs it or be able to tell your machines to turn off in a fast enough time or during the right time window. Those are, if you miss it, then maybe you turn off the mine when the grid actually needs you to be on.
But that shouldn't be. Surely there's an interest in miners sharing this information. And so surely the ones who are shit at it should be talking to the ones good at it and saying...
It's a lot of pride.
Really?
A lot of pride. As far as like the curtailment side of it, as far as like operational, it used to be very secretive, like 2012, 2013, when a big site was 5 megawatts. You know, you don't know where it is. You don't tell anybody how much you pay. All that's different now. And now the curtailment piece is much more kind of like guarded. Anybody can come to my mine, our big mine, right? Anybody can come check it out. And just like the Iris guys, they'll have anybody out. But when you ask them like, hey, can you show me the source code for how you control your mines? If it's built by them, no chance. Because that's the secret sauce that everybody's competing on now.
Right. Okay. So during this season, is there both a chance that there will be a good story told and potentially a bad story told?
I don't think there'll be a bad story because it's not enough of the Texas grid to have a catastrophic impact.
Right. Which, if it did happen, that would be disastrous. PR.
Oh, sure. We would be shut down instantly.
But there's a chance of a very good story to be told?
I can tell you that during the last winter storm, had miners not been there, we would have been blackout.
Huh.
And ERCOT has that data. ERCOT has the data for every single Texas miner. They talk to the miners. They say, hey, you guys were good at curtailing. They have a ranking, actually, of who's good at it, who's bad at it. Everybody's helping the bad people get better. But at the top, nobody's like sharing. Like if you're first and I'm second, no way you're talking to me.
So there's a real need for what's happening there in Texas to also happen in other states and also happen in other countries.
Yeah.
Because we don't want too big a concentration.
That's right.
Yeah. So a good story would be useful. We need it to happen in the UK. I mean,
How much mining happens in the UK?
Very little.
I would assume there's no industrial mining and there may be some home miners.
I know there's some stuff in like Northern Ireland.
Yeah, we
there's-
know those
They're
guys.
like
don't we?
digesters and
I
stuff.
always get the name wrong. Skilling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just energy's so expensive.
That's right.
It's so expensive. But there should be some mining done with the curtailment. Somebody should be doing something there.
It's fairly easy. You just plop a container next to a turbine and hook it up.
We know that. The problem is the skepticism from people in the UK with regards to things like Bitcoin. It's
I don't actually know who owns that power as well. Who owns the wind power?
Yeah, is it privatized or is it
I'm not sure.
owned by
yeah,
the
I mean,
government?
the industry is privatized.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of subsidies that go into the build out. A lot of, I mean, we have is it like 50% of the UK's power is now wind?
I mean, it obviously fluctuates, but it gets up as high as like 65% is wind.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like
Very
right
much.
now,
quite a bit.
it's pretty low, but I guess it's late on now. So, but wind's 20% as of right this minute.
Yeah, and we're probably, I can imagine the weather is pretty mild at the moment.
Yeah, and it's late in the day. So,
Yeah, interesting. Is there any part of this I've not asked you about yet that you wish we'd have covered?
Do lions make good security guards? That's-
Well, actually, how do you operate the security with a distributed site like this and repairs in multiple countries? Are you training someone locally to fix ASICs?
So we are always on site with the power company. So we have their security as well.
Okay.
And then yes, we do train somebody locally for first level repairs. For larger, more complicated things, we have guys in Nairobi who it's often us. It will fly the next time we fly down there, we'll fix something.
But and this business scales well.
Yeah, no, it does. It does, because we have advantages that a lot of the Bitcoin miners elsewhere don't have, which is we have isolated powerhouses and we have the ability to do revenue share instead of paying a floor price.
And each site, when they get up to full capacity usage, will that mean you'll be removing ASICs, or do you still think you'll be operational just at night?
Sorry, what were you?
So you talked about earlier, they build out for the future use and it takes some time to build up. But over that period, do you have to consider, once it does get to full usage, will you be moving out of those sites?
Yeah, we have to know that there's somewhere else we can move those miners to. Now that's a couple of years from now.
Well, and they're nimble too, because they can tune them to use less power on the road to having to move them. So it's not just like overnight. They can see it coming.
Yeah, there's software to we only use What's miners. We don't use any of the Bitmain machines because they're hardier. Oh, by the way, so what Marsh was just saying is we can tune them to be running on a lower efficiency mode, which means less power usage. So instead of 3.4, it takes 2.7, right, to run it. And actually, it doesn't really affect our. It affects us, but our profitability doesn't go down that much, right? So we can run it that way. No, but the reason we love What's miners, and then this was actually, Marshall was the one who told us to go this way, and thank God he did. These things can take a beating. So when the rains come in Africa, you get flying ants, right? So it's the termites, they have wings, they fly around. And if you have lights on, they just flock to it. And it's just, it'll block out the lights. And, one of our containers, we did not have a filter on one of the intakes, and somebody had left the light on at night in it. And we were like, why are our miners going down to like 60% efficiency of their normal 100%? We get there, we start cleaning them out. We pull off the fans, and it's full of bug guts. Oh. Just completely
suicide termites.
Oh my gosh.
The stuff you find inside of miners is great. I've seen birds, all kinds of stuff.
But they're still running. What's miners are amazing. So we love them. And they have proved themselves already to us.